Hello, everyone, and welcome to Simplify Network Automation with NetGru. We have a special guest this week, Ali McKeand from CA Labs. Ali, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. How are you? How have you been? We were just discussing there's a bit of an emergency on your side happening. Hope that
There's,
solves itself.
there's sadly there's always emergency somewhere
Yeah.
in my existence, but nothing I'm sure I can't handle. But no, all good so far this week. It's
All
Wednesday.
right. All right, Wednesday, middle of the week. Thanks, folks, for joining. So we're gonna talk about. We've been talking on this stream now for more than a year about automation and how to do it, and we've shown code, and we've had people come and explain automation and how it improved their projects and life and all of that. But we've got to a point now where we've talked with you, right? I've had a chat in Cisco Live Amsterdam. We've had a long chat. We've partnered with CAE for many, many years, all the way back in the DevNet Marketplace days when we were going to build the marketplace. So we've had a great collaboration so far. But I wanted to bring kind of like the business aspect of automation into the picture.
Yes.
Because, right, at the end of the day, money runs the world in a way.
Sadly so sometimes,
Yeah. So we're talking about automation, but at the same time, let's see how you can start making money and a business out of it. So tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, you've been on Snack Minutes, you've been with Jeff Bull on live streams and stuff. You've been involved with DevNet now for many, many years. Folks most probably know you, but a quick intro if you don't mind.
No, I obviously appreciate all the collaboration with obviously DevNet over the years. So yeah, Ali McKeand, Chief Technologist for Innovation, very kind of hyper-focused around Cisco APIs, platforms, and programmability. Been at CA for coming on to 19 years. I think LinkedIn kindly reminded me the other day, but 15 of those were spent in the field deploying a significant amount of Cisco technology, Meraki technology since 2005, 2006. But actually, I think the exciting for me was around actually the opportunity to, from a career perspective, to pivot slightly from sort of being a network engineer and really looking at building a solid kind of, I guess, practice around programmability, innovation creation, listening to our customers, which is, the thing I love doing the most is understanding their problems, what they're trying to solve, be that business problems or technical problems. But yeah, I think I've only really known Cisco as a vendor for 2 decades. So I know kind of warts and all, and how best to operate and work with Cisco and how to build value jointly that kind of complements the various different Cisco technology stacks. So yeah, it's my background's network engineering. So I've done the whole CCNA, CCNP cert track in routing and switching and wireless. Didn't quite get to CCIE. I think I kind of knew where my ceiling was. Certainly with a lot of the pros and the great kind of people I worked with within the professional services team within CA. So yeah, that's a little bit of background of where I've kind of come from. And yeah, I've got probably one of the best jobs in the house, which is a lot of R&D, a lot of playing with Cisco technology, and then building capability on top of those technology stacks.
Fantastic. So network engineer at heart, but kind of migrated towards a CTO role and bringing business into the picture at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, this very much, I guess, from an automation perspective, started with ultimately a problem I was trying to solve for myself. You talked about it a moment ago, is how to save time and create new efficiencies that maybe don't exist out there. And that's kind of really where it started for me, was that ultimately I had my own pain point in a project back in 2019. Where I was very fortunate to be aligned to a project that was of significant value and quite a few thousand locations. And yeah, really it was a case of like, how do we make this as streamlined as possible, make sure we deliver ahead of time, ahead of budget. Obviously, all key points for all of our customers. And yeah, it was, I just touched on it, funny enough, on a LinkedIn post where I copied in our joint colleague, Matt, from the Cisco DevNet space. And ultimately, I happened to stumble upon a DevNet session, my very first Cisco Live back in 2019 in Barcelona. And it was a really, that session that kind of, I guess, solidified and captured my aspirations for that particular customer project when I came back to the UK, and was able to really work with a colleague internally here at CAE to, I would say, cobble together a bit of a science project, maybe Skunk's Works project, that would automate the provisioning of literally thousands and thousands of Cisco firewalls and switches, build the networks from kind of scratch. And it was really through that kind of light bulb moment of seeing something that was taking me as a network engineer manually, best part of 60 minutes, maybe an extra 20 minutes with OCD. It was taking that build time down to 20 seconds per location, and enabling one of our guys within the CA config area to really barcode those particular serial numbers from Cisco, and then click go, and it would just build these thousands and thousands of networks and locations. So it was really, that was the eureka moment. That was the kind of light bulb that went in my head, going, wow, we've really done something fantastic here that delivered some really improved outcomes for the customer. So speeded up the time to delivery, the time to value. And then I was thinking, well, this isn't necessarily an application we can sell. It's effectively something we built in-house with HTML, and kind of built it so it delivered the outcome that we were trying to achieve at that particular point in time. But it was really towards the tail end of 2019 where that particular customer wanted to actually buy a capability that we were using in-house to deliver that project. So we thought, okay, well, let's really get our heads together and see how can we build a secure, professionally developed application that we can then obviously hand over to the customer to use month on month, year on year. They still use it today. Actually, we just been refactoring it to support the latest and greatest Cisco design for them. So that's kind of really where the story started. It wasn't let's build something and find a market for it. It was very much a case of we want to solve our own challenges, i.e.
optimizing basically your work.
And exactly, saving time. I think that particular project, I calculated and quantified, I think I saved myself about 168 days worth of just manually keyboard bashing, subnets, creating SSIDs, creating various different areas within the Cisco networking cloud, or Meraki dashboard, as most people know it. And it was really that kind of, let's say, light bulb moment was like, oh, how do we potentially, it was still very early days, how do we build a business practice around this capability? And then, like all good things, things snowball, and they just build momentum. You're talking about it, you're obviously passionate about it, you're excited about it, customers are excited about it because they, we can save them time or money or create new efficiencies. So that's kind of where it kind of scaled out, and then really kind of became the kind of innovation software development practice that it is today.
Gotcha. So I mean, sounds like CAE used to be, like a regular Cisco partner, moving boxes, installing Meraki, whatever it is, right? And then you came into the picture, you tried to make your work easier. And then there's like, hey, I need to do this, deploy this many hundreds of sites. And how can I do that in a more optimized way, faster, better for me, so that I don't have to spend half a year on this? And then it kind of worked itself organically, naturally into, let's see if we can sell this, and people are interested. So how would you say, what percentage these days is automation as part of CAE compared to your old school moving boxes, selling Meraki devices, Cat3 Cent, and all of that?
Correct. Yeah. So I think the way that I kind of explain it a lot is obviously that we have been a Cisco partner, I believe, for now over 3 decades, so 30 years. And it's a case of how do you differentiate yourself in a very, very competitive, noisy market, right? Is, in my opinion, I'm quite bold about saying this, is that any kind of partner can sell Cisco, manage Cisco, install Cisco. But what we're really trying to achieve is be able to create this kind of banner of complementary, integrated innovation, and automation has obviously been key to that. To come to your question around, how many projects do we automate? It really comes down to kind of a couple of key metrics or factors. One is around, is there a necessity for scale and pace? Is there a project that literally has thousands of locations or hundreds of locations and thousands, if not tens of thousands of Cisco devices that need to be provisioned rapidly. So over the last, I would say, 5 years, we've had several dozen projects that have been of that scale, where we wanted to do it differently with our customers and with Cisco technology. So utilizing that automation capability has absolutely been pinnacle to how we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, but also how we can deliver more value and benefits to customers, really. That's been kind of it is a key area that we lead on, which is how we integrate with various different Cisco platforms, because it's not just been solely focused around the Cisco Meraki platform and the great API that the team continues to develop at Cisco. It is also around Catalyst Center. Actually, this story sort of started when we looked at actually productizing APIs and operationalizing APIs, which is a kind of key factor away from kind of scripts that we were doing in 2019, which are highly valuable still. They are a bedrock and the lifeblood actually of our innovation practice, which is a lot of our consultants, geniuses. They create Python scripts and other automation workflows through things like Ansible, and it's actually taking that and how do then we look to operationalize it and productize it so that anybody within our business, anybody within a customer's business, doesn't need to be technically astute necessarily, but are able to actually batch provision networks and devices at a scale of 500 a transaction. So that's been kind of a key part is, how do we simplify things, super simplify the automation approach. And that's where we really kind of, I guess, got the support from Cisco. I think back to kind of the summer of 2022, is that we were fortunate enough to tap into something that the Cisco partner organization were launching. They were only looking for 2 partners globally, which was something called Jumpstart funding, and working with a great team at Cisco in the partner organization space, where effectively it was $50,000 to develop and build capability that the market needs and that obviously was going to solve some problems naturally. And so we actually built our first platform, which was Nucleus Automation, and that was for Catalyst Center initially. And it was actually with the emphasis around, we were fortunate enough to win a project in 2020, which was for around 1,000 schools. So rolling out Cisco infrastructure, Wi-Fi 6 for 1,000 schools. And we thought, well, how do we help these schools? How do we help these local authorities as a local government, be able to do this without having to throw people at it to configure the networking side and obviously just focus purely on the implementation. You can't unfortunately automate racking, stacking and patching a switch, a firewall and mounting access points. So that's really where that kind of came from, is that Cisco partner org Jumpstart funding, where we could build the concept. So it was a minimal viable product back then. And because we were able to deliver that outcome, which was speed up the time to delivery and time to value on Catalyst stacks and wireless access points, where we made it effectively console cable free. That's a bit of a tagline that I kind of drive when talking about automation, is making it console cable free, because I was so used to being that engineer stuck in a room at weekends or during the week or evenings, pre-staging Catalyst 3850s, 3750s, and imaging them, and I was like, there must be a better way. So that's where we want to remove up to 90% of the kind of, I guess, the project waste, I'd call it, cost and time, by building that capability that we co-innovated with our Cisco colleagues back in the summer of 2020.
Gotcha. All right, so that's also a nice partnership with Cisco. Sounds like there's some funding that you guys got for helping out, which is fantastic. So then, how did you convince your management, right? So it's like, hey, I'm doing this, it's improving my work, but then somebody within the company, like a C-suite type of person should have seen like, oh, there's value in this. Let me give you some money or let me support you. How did that go about? Because we know people, lots of folks are struggling, they're automating, but then there's no visibility up or there's no investment, from.
No, I get it. It's businesses obviously have to hedge. They have to hedge, invest where to make investments, equally where not to. And I think I do recall when I was looking to create the role that I'm fortunate enough to be in today, and obviously that particular leader had seen what we'd done during that particular rollout project in 2019. off the back of that DevNet session with Matt, just basically said to me, and I can remember it as clear as day as it was yesterday, which was pretty much, if you don't own it, someone else will. So in reference to owning the fact of building something net new and building value in-house for our own people to benefit from, but equally, our customers as well. So I think, again, to the point about the Cisco Jumpstart funding in 2020, that was a massive enabler and catalyst. It helps, obviously, us as a partner to de-risk in areas around, it may have not been successful, right? It might not have been enough funding to have actually built an MVP and something that's tangibly valuable. But that's been the case actually through this journey over the last 5 years, where we have very much been working closely with Cisco, and obviously a huge amount of investment from ourselves in time and obviously in investment from a commercial perspective. But yeah, I think it comes back to that piece around differentiation in a marketplace. I think in the UK alone, which is the primary market that we operate in, though actually a lot of capability that we've built in software isn't limited to the UK. Is that it's actually been how do we provide a unique that CA has, and that 1,000 plus other partners in UK don't. That's been kind of the key point, because, like I said, back to my point a moment ago, is that we need to try and elevate the Cisco technology and make it more valuable for customers, more affordable to deploy, more feature-rich, capability-rich, by using APIs within various different platforms like Catalyst Center, Meraki, as well as other ones like Cisco Umbrella.
Okay, so you're going basically in your automation efforts kind of like only products that have APIs. You didn't necessarily do CLI automation with Tickle and Expect, or did you start back then and
No, I think
scraping the CLI and that type of stuff, right? It's like, hey, does it have an API? Then we're gonna go do or try to automate it. If it doesn't, then we're not really gonna touch it. Was that a decision point?
It's an interesting one, because prior to obviously first, I guess diving into programmability and APIs in 2019, I did, dabble, let's say, in trying to automate repetitive tasks. So a good example here was I was unfortunately doing a lot of manual software upgrades on routers, switches, firewalls, and so on. So I would actually sort of script the process, like the pre kind of upgrade and the post upgrade. So I wouldn't necessarily say I did anything that was very fancy, but I used to use, I was a bit of a kind of ardent user of secure CRT. And within secure CRT, you could create, and actually was one of our senior consultants, our CCIs here, that kind of brought me an insight into how he kind of tried to automate common daily tasks. So yeah, within secure CRT, I think I had about 500 individual kind of point and clicks where I could, for example, grab various different show commands from CLI, being either console connected or SSH connected. So I'd probably say nothing massively fancy or over-egged, but I guess that was probably my scratching the surface of trying to save time, at least, is using some of the automation kind of capability that was back in Secure CRT. I don't even know if Secure CRT is even around, to be honest, but I'm sure it is. It was a great product as a network engineer, and having a blue console cable.
Yeah, I didn't even know it has like automation functionality. I mean, I've used Secure CRT, PuTTY, all of those just for connecting to devices, to SSHing into them. But
Secure CRT, Adrian, is a professional version of PuTTY.
right.
Yeah, so no, I use PuTTY as well, but yeah, Secure CRT lets you do a lot more. Obviously, that's probably why they charge for it, whereas PuTTY's always been, thankfully, a free of charge software application.
All right, so you've tried, but then you ran into the typical problems that folks run into when they start automating CLI, and then with Cisco coming with APIs, that opened up a whole new world. Developers can come in at that point. +1 Dexter on Secure CRT, I know.
Yeah, nice one.
So APIs comes through, right? It gives you the option to scale much further. It gives you the option of bringing software developers, actual software developers on the team, right? They've been working with APIs, they know REST. So how does that work? How much percentage of your team would you say is network people, and how much is like purely software developers?
Yeah, it is a great question, because I think starting the practice, I'll probably say more officially in 2020, the developers are absolutely blowing my mind about how much domain knowledge they have around developing well polished, secure code and applications. But something I've kind of been building, I guess, year on year is around domain knowledge. So obviously, from a networking perspective, obviously we've got the domain knowledge of how Cisco solutions operate, and you use those particular solutions. Obviously, then looking under the hood from not just the GUI, but actually how is that platform supported from an API perspective. It's been every day's a school day for me, but it's been a huge learning curve year on year. As when we go to approach a new platform, I'll give a good example was started last year. We'd done absolutely no kind of development on Cisco Umbrella, but there were key lessons learned from years before around the networking space, which is there a solid and mature documentation for that particular API? That's always been a key one. If there's missing kind of responses, if there's missing kind of API endpoints, or how it actually operates, that's been a key challenge. And thankfully, a lot of the APIs that we work with are well documented by Cisco, and that's kind of just continually improved, certainly over the last, I would say, 3 years in a number of the platforms. Also, I think a key one is around, a lot of the times we get customers, we thrive on this, get a lot of customers throw us problem statements like, can you do X? And it might be that one of the solutions that we've built from the ground up doesn't do X, but what we'll do is we'll take away from that workshop the problem statement, and then look at the Cisco DevNet developer space for the documentation for that platform, and see if there's an API operation that might support that particular outcome, technical business that customer's trying to achieve. So testing and exercising using Postman to test APIs, find out if there's any challenges, any bugs. And we often are sometimes that feels like anyway the first guys that are actually utilizing these APIs aggressively. So we do sometimes find challenges with them, but thankfully, again, working very closely with product management and engineering and other teams, we can usually get those kind of resolved. So that's probably the second one. So yeah, solid, mature documentation, testing and exercising the API, making sure it can actually deliver what we're trying to achieve from an output and outcome perspective. And then, yeah, really just sort of tight collaboration with the teams that look after these platforms. So when, I am very fortunate and grateful to have some fantastic relationships with different product management teams that look after specifically the API. I think they're probably very bored of me saying API first. It's something we talked about last month at Cisco Live. But yeah, there are definitely lessons learned that we absolutely know when we're breaking into a brand new project, some of the checklist that we need to run through. But I think we're at a stage now, certainly within the Cisco networking space, be that kind of on-prem managed with Catalyst Center, or cloud managed within the networking space, where I'd be pretty surprised if we haven't scratched a lot of all of the API endpoints, and we're just continually updating and refactoring our platform when these new updates come out, kind of every month, or feels like every minute, but every month that these API updates and documents come out. But yeah, it's definitely been some steep learning over the last 5 years, but I think I'm probably got all of the scars somewhere, and grey hairs somewhere maybe behind from that.
All right, so then how important is for you to ask directly folks at Cisco, like product managers or API architects, and how do you meet these people, right? It's like, because as I'm coming from outside of Cisco, right, how do I reach these people? Who are they, right? And then how important is that for you to keep a connection with these people, and to have a direct line of telling them, hey, this is not working for me, or help me out here? How is that collaboration working with the actual BU?
Yeah, and it's a very, I guess it's 5 years now that I kind of pivoted from being a field network engineer, where I would never have to speak to, let's say product management or product engineering. So, that very sort of traditional, I guess, Cisco partner relationship we have with Cisco doesn't typically speak to those types of the organization.
Exactly.
For me, in this role, it's absolutely fundamental. It's kind of like bread and butter, where I need to make sure that if we're going to be developing around a particular API, that I want to know who that product manager is, because actually it's mutually beneficial. It's a value share model, right? Because we're obviously capitalizing on that particular platform API, but then it's also, I think, in a lot of ways, supporting and helping that product manager be able to showcase that, you know, partners, customers, and others are utilizing these APIs to deliver real world impact, you know, like come back to the saving time, saving money, and improving operational efficiencies. You know, it's a mutually beneficial one. So I very much value and treasure the relationships I have with those kind of key architecture API PMs, because ultimately, if I do hit a roadblock or a blocker, I mean, even a couple of emails today to one of the API PMs for a specific Cisco cloud solution, you know, we're trying to problem solve on how to get through this blocker. You know, it's kind of a give and take kind of relationship. But I absolutely love it when I get fortunate invites to showcase some of the automation that we've built around the different APIs, because I think it helps also engineering. And I've been in a few situations, I've been on all hands sessions at Cisco, and kind of just presenting what we've built on top of these platform APIs. And I think some of the engineering, you know, and developers at Cisco didn't even know that, you know, partners or individuals were tapping in and productizing, operationalizing, building our own platforms on top, to ultimately deliver better experiences for our joint customers.
No, definitely. I mean, it's a mutually beneficial relationship for sure. It's just, I was wondering also, is there a specific way that you reach to these people? Like, how do you get to know them? Is
LinkedIn
like
helps.
through word of, LinkedIn, word of
Yeah.
mouth. It's like, okay, who is this? Who's there? Right. So you're just asking around, inquiring, LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a pretty good hustle in this position.
Okay.
Not gonna lie, but no, I think ultimately a lot of the times we're, you know, a lot of posts on LinkedIn, obviously seeing kind of who are within product management, obviously getting linked. We're very fortunate, obviously, having worked just with Cisco for the last 20 years, that I typically know who to leapfrog to learn who someone might be in that particular role. But yeah, it's definitely sometimes about who you know, not what you know. Just as
Right.
Yeah, but no, as I said, typically, you know, I've found all PMs to be very much welcoming and wanting to learn about challenges. And that I come back to that sort of initial initiative in 2020, the Jumpstart Fund. Now, part of that ROI for Cisco on us actually developing capability with the Northbound Intent API on Catalyst Center, or DNAC back then, was that we would actually do a weekly report, and it was pretty intense, for about 3 months. Every Wednesday I would write up a report saying how we're getting on, but then it was also to document challenges that we were having with innovating and developing around the Catalyst Center API. So I think we had about, I don't know, I want to say maybe 4 pages worth of areas that we found a bit of a struggle. We wasted, you know, 20% or 25% of software development time just trying to get our head around why it wouldn't operate or respond in the right way. So again, it comes back to that kind of mutually beneficial element, which is, you know, how to collaborate to deliver better.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. So then let me ask you this, right? You have a customer comes with a request to, is like, hey, Ali, can we do this? Can we automate that? Right. So how do you decide to take on a request like that? Is there a point where you say, you know, no, we're not really interested in that. Sorry, go talk with somebody else. Did you get to that situation? Or like, how do you decide which of these requests you're actually going to implement and which you're going to say, you know, maybe not?
Yeah, no, it's a great one. It's one I've only got better over the years with when it comes to solving new problems. So first one really comes back to the kind of lessons learned over the years, which is, will the API support that particular solving of that problem? Because if it can't, it's a non-starter, right? It's a non-starter. But when a lot of the time it does support that particular potential output. So yeah, we start with a workshop. We understand that problem statement. I then look at what we've already built in the 4 platforms around automation. Can it be added to one of those existing platforms? And it's kind of actually what comes under the banner of CA Labs Custom Design Solutions. So it'd be something that we'll obviously either develop for ourselves, because we can see that would be adopted, several times over by lots of other customers. So we'll look to build it ourselves. Or if it's a bit niche, a bit bespoke, then that's where we will obviously provide that kind of costed option, and then we'll provide obviously the DevOps wrapper around it, because you build something tomorrow, it's going to be broken in 2 months, guaranteed. It needs to be continually maintained from an integration perspective. So yeah, two very different approaches. Do we solve that problem by productizing it into one of our existing platforms, or do we solve it by creating a custom designed solution? We've done many engagements like that over the last 5 years, and I always get excited when we're talking about net new that doesn't exist today, because in my head I'm thinking, could that be used 1,000 times over by other valued customers? And 9 times out of 10, it's a problem statement that not one customer's asked, but several have asked for.
Gotcha. All right. So then let me ask you, how do you find people to help you out, right? Like employees, how difficult it is to find network automation engineers, technicians, whatever you want to call them, like in UK, let's say, right? In that market specifically.
Sure.
Do you see network folks that are kind of transitioning towards automation?
Absolutely.
Is it difficult to find these people? DevNet certification, does that help in finding the right people if they have the certification with their resume? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, I think actually we're super fortunate in the fact that we've got some great network engineers and network consultants that have absolutely embraced programmability and automation, predominantly through kind of like Python and also creating let's say Ansible playbooks. So yeah, I think a number of them have obviously gone down the DevNet associate route, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily mandatory required. A lot of these individuals within the CA technical services team just do it as a kind of an evening project, or they're benefiting themselves. And I think that's what I get really excited about is those individuals that are automating certain tasks for a certain project, and then we're collaborating. I'm like, actually, maybe we could grab that Python, convert it into a productized approach for future customers to benefit from. So yeah, there's a I wouldn't want to say necessarily grassroots, because they're well more advanced than kind of grassroots, but there's a significant number of individuals within the team that have been pretty much at the forefront of embracing it and are collaborating actually themselves with Cisco product management in various new products that Cisco have launched in the last few years. They've been influencing, providing feedback, bugs, and so on. So yeah, we're quite blessed, I think, in that perspective, where a lot of individuals are just taking the initiative and breaking those own kind of boundaries.
All right, so that's nice, because it's basically within CAE you have these folks that are upskilling themselves and moving towards automation different ways, like you said, night projects or weekend, or just certification, or just trying to make their work easier and faster. So it's nice to see that within the team itself that you get these people kind of wanting to do this.
And I'm very fortunate where I get to collaborate with those kind of bright minds that are doing this, as a kind of day job, with our customers, and then getting the opportunity to learn, listen, and discover what they're doing, because it always kind of I'm just one individual, right? And I think CA Labs is much more than one individual. It's actually a collective of technical individuals that have kind of built ultimately this practice to what it is today. And everybody's got their good ideas, and but a lot of those ideas we're actually able to convert to something, let's say, tangible and into one of our platforms. But yeah, we're quite fortunate in that respect.
Nice. All right, so then let me ask you next, right? You've done this now for several years. Some of the lessons learned, right? Like looking back, what would you tell yourself 5 years to do better? Or if you were to go back in time and talk to yourself, it's like, hey, do this and that to put you on the path towards success and avoid this type of situation. Like, what would you tell yourself, to put you on the right path? or on a better path?
That's a killer question. I'd probably say get more sleep. Would be
Get more sleep.
Yeah, but no, I think, like I said, I think probably diving in more deeper into, I guess, probably the more kind of testing and exercising concepts. So obviously we do that a lot anyway, but I think probably building back then more domain knowledge. Leaning even more into Cisco DevNet, collaborating and there's a great community around DevNet, right? And I think that's probably something I would like to have done maybe earlier on certainly even when I was a Cisco network engineer. But yeah, I think kind of, I don't think there's really anything specifically that I wish I'd done that differently. I think I've been very fortunate, and I think to build capability that customers have collaborated with us on. So we've not had to, we haven't just like literally designed something hoping to find a market for it. We're fortunate that we are a 30-year plus Cisco partner, and we have Cisco infrastructure projects, Cisco security projects every day of the week. So it's kind of like we can try and see whether or not that customer has that appetite to maybe look at automating that particular task that we were going to maybe manually do. So yeah, I think, would I do anything differently 5 years ago? No, I think overall the journey's been pretty full of lessons learned, but I don't know necessarily whether or not, maybe I don't know. I genuinely don't think there is anything that I could have thought, I wish I'd done that differently, because I think we've been on this trajectory where we are learning every day, and then building that domain knowledge and that expertise and maturity. I think is probably the key word, right? Maturity of the practice, where I think if we hadn't have learned those things in year one, year two, maybe the practice, maybe the software and platforms that we've developed wouldn't necessarily be as mature as they are, because you learn through mistakes, right? You learn through testing concepts, ideas. I think we're very fortunate in the fact that nothing that we've actually built hasn't been adopted at least double digits or triple digits in case of some of the platforms. I think technical debt would have probably been a testament to that, and maybe I wouldn't be here. I don't know if there'd been too much.
No, so it sounds like you folks have had a nice organic growth in which we try things, right? We improve them, and you go like kind of in an agile way of we take it on, we improve every single time. So that's good to see.
Core principle, right? Continuous improvement, continuous development, right? It's, you just are on that cycle and journey. Yeah, doesn't end.
Yeah. So do you think this is the model for Cisco partners going forward, like how you folks are doing it, right? How do you differentiate yourself, and you do that through software, through extra capabilities on top of APIs? Do you think like that's kind of the way of the future? Like, how do you see that for Cisco partners of the old, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an interesting question, because I've been in rooms with lots of partners over the years, and I think it intrigues me about how many partners are not tapping into necessarily the world of programmability and APIs. Obviously, there are a handful, but certainly not to the scale. Certainly, I'm sure Cisco would love, and certainly Cisco DevNet would love. I don't feel that dial's really changing, but then I guess in a selfish way,
that's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not necessarily going to preach that more people do it, but obviously they actually will do, because like I said, it's mostly down to individuals taking that kind of initiative and wanting to break down barriers, break the boundaries, and the doors down. But yeah, I think I'm still surprised maybe why it hasn't been embraced as rapidly and at the velocity maybe that the industry had hoped or would like. But yeah, then again, it always comes with kind of risk of doing things differently. I mean, that's a core principle of innovation, is testing the boundaries and what's the risk appetite. And I think that's where we've been fortunate enough to get it right quite early on, and then just see it kind of snowball effect into what it is today, really, but kind of leaps and bounds ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, you are at the forefront of innovation. There is risk, right? Things could go well or things could go bad, but so that's always a risk with when you embrace the latest technologies, right? But in this case, it sounds like a no-brainer. It sounds like right, at least from my perspective. But I'm an engineer. I'm not really a financial guy, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously an engineer as well, but I think obviously having that support from the organisation that I'm fortunate enough to be in to kind of, I guess, try to encourage, support, enable, empower to build what we've been fortunate enough to got today. But that might not be the case in every organisation, right? It might be very kind of like, this is your task, this is what you do, and actually not getting that kind of that incubation within a business that is allowed to take those ideas and kind of flourish with them and have that kind of blank canvas to do things differently. I think I can only really speak from where I've worked for 2 decades, right? I'm sure it's similar in other organizations and partners.
Gotcha. Okay, so then let's have a look at some of the demos, some of these platforms. We kept talking about Nucleus, right? And some of the projects that you've been working on and that you have for your customers. So you want to show us some, Ali? Let's have a look at some of them. I know you have put together a couple of slides.
Yeah, just a couple of demos, pretty whistle stop, sort of exactly kind of what we've been doing. But what I'll kind of do is just outline really the problem that we've been ultimately trying to solve for our joint customers, right? So yeah, I'd say very heavily focused on Cisco infrastructure, both from a networking perspective, but also Cisco security. And then really kind of, as I say, the journey sort of started with hyper-focused network and device automation with Nucleus. But as with all things, it kind of scaled out as we were trying to help and support our customers solve additional problems that we were seeing. So being receptive, customers are very much the lifeblood of our innovation practice. Without them, there isn't a practice. So yeah, we've built out 4 capabilities, solving different parts. So network intelligence is about providing observability within a Cisco infrastructure around routing, switching, networking, understanding kind of lifecycle management, understanding any security vulnerabilities, as well as potentially other areas like field notices and licensing. That's been a service that actually we built way back in 2012, but we then decided in 2020 to kind of build a platform approach to that. And then moving to the wiser what's, this has probably been the most exciting project because it was very much driven by customers. That wasn't necessarily a problem that we were planning to solve in 2021, but again, various different customers said that sustainability is a priority for them at board level. Rising energy costs, rising pressures around decarbonisation and drive to net zero, and it was a great collaborative approach with about 3 or 4 customers in 2021, which is, okay, how do we remove as much energy waste from Cisco network infrastructure? So it's been part of our kind of sustainable networking proposition and utilizing APIs to actually genuinely deliver impactful change, not just for the wallet and the money, but actually for the environment. That's why I think it has been fortunately been one of our kind of most rapidly adopted solutions since we rolled it out and made it available in Cisco Live 2 years ago. Assure, we'll do a quick demo on that, but it's all about disaster recovery, digital resilience for Cisco Networking Cloud. That's a platform kind of live and breathe pretty much every moment of the day, it feels like. And then Nucleus automation, which was the first platform supported collaboratively with Cisco around that jump start funding. But outside of those 4 solutions platforms, coming back to your earlier question, is if it's a problem that we don't solve today, that's really when we get the sort of team involved and do a workshop with customers around custom developed software solutions or custom design solutions. We've also, I think, have been key to that question around interacting with the different parts of Cisco over the last 5 years, is that we've also been an ecosystem partner, so not just a sort of Cisco gold partner, a VAR, but actually you know, an ISV sort of lens and capability. So that's been a Meraki strategic technology partner, or within that Cisco networking app marketplace space, has been key to building that that kind of engagement. So just to kind of, I guess, touch on the four areas and bring it kind of within a kind of retail setting, though, you know, other sectors are available, is that we've obviously been trying to focus on different areas. So how do we reduce technology refresh times with APIs and integration, so Catalyst Center, Umbrella, so on. Increase digital resilience, so how do we make sure that's as resilient store from as possible should there be an accidental or malicious intent, I guess, around bringing down that environment. How do we get it up as quickly as possible? Improved observability and reducing overall risk, so continually tracking and monitoring a Cisco environment, be that through the Meraki platform, be that through on-prem, and then reducing energy consumption from a retail environment. Again, lots of industries, sectors and verticals that all of this kind of applies to. But starting off with, you know, where it all kind of really began, which was, you know, trying to, I guess, professionalize and productize the 2019 sort of HTML, you know, one-page automation capability we built. Nucleus has kind of, you know, evolved over 5 years to really sort of change the dial on how do you speed up an adoption. So I think I love it when we start with a new customer and we're planning to take an automated service delivery approach rather than a manual service delivery approach, because Nucleus's main function is to reduce time and reduce spend on engineering, as well as obviously make sure there's consistency in build quality. That's a key one. You know, when you're handing over a large network or not, you know, a large branch environment, it needs to have that kind of consistency. Otherwise, you know, how do you support a infrastructure if every engineer's add a little bit of nuance or a little bit of extra configuration and syntax, and with the aim really to get a faster return on investment. So to give a quick kind of demo of this, what I've done and the insight for me is actually I brought a demo video that I did like probably back then in 2020. We obviously updated it just like the intro video, if I'm honest. But is Nucleus to provision back then, you know, thousands of schools using an import file, validating those inputs, so making sure it's a first time right approach to the build quality. Nucleus is going to then process those sites, so it's actually going to build those networks, so provision, you know, thousands of individual networks on the Meraki platform or within the network hierarchy, you know, the areas, the buildings, the locations within that network hierarchy and Catalyst Center, and then provision those 63 devices. So it's, you know, just created those 63 devices, so firewalls, access points, switches, cameras, sensors, as well as cellular gateways. It's going through that programmatically, you know, bringing that to life. But this is run by, you know, non-technical users, sometimes within CA. So, you know, potentially we've had a project where one of our project coordinators, you know, was provisioning thousands of Cisco wireless access points through Nucleus. So they didn't need to learn, you know, even what kind of, you know, an IPv4 or IPv6 IP addresses. They don't need to learn anything about kind of the networking space, but we've kind of simplified it that even, you know, my grandparents can automate a rollout of Cisco Meraki or Cisco Catalyst or adoption of Cisco Umbrella.
Yeah, it's basically that Excel file that you were showing, right? You have an Excel file, you have your devices, maybe serial numbers, and you load it up. You just drop it in your Nucleus platform, and magic happens. They get provisioned, configured, and
that's it. And we've extended that a lot over the last couple of years, because funny enough, a customer wanted to enable and empower the data cablers that were going to their locations to provision. So not batch provisioning like you just saw in that quick demo, you know, thousands of devices in a single transaction. So we actually developed a barcode automation capability into Nucleus. So this is effectively where a data cabler or a technician can just barcode the box from Cisco, and then Nucleus automates that, but on site. So you know that, for example, when you select your like location 123, you barcode those access points. It will then programmatically provision those into the Cisco Network and Cloud or Meraki dashboard. So again, giving kind of the enablement to a installer with a smartphone, again, doesn't need to have access secure, doesn't have to have access or from a security perspective to the Meraki dashboard or Catalyst Center, but can still do the job that they need to do. So the right tool for the right individual at the right price point. And then really Assure was again a problem that I got pitched by a customer in 2019. Funny enough, a lot happened in 2019. But this was about what do we do? We've heavily invested in Cisco Meraki technology at scale. Underpins our business. What do we do around backup? And I was like, well, unfortunately, it's not. You can't just spin up Kiwi cat tools, which obviously was something I used to use all the time for just TFTPing text files from Catalyst switches and ASAs and so on. There isn't a capability like that natively on the Meraki dashboard. So back then, the API was V0, so it didn't have complete coverage or didn't have good enough coverage to build a capability around service assurance or disaster recovery. But then in 2021, V1, I think it was, of the Meraki dashboard API was launched. I think it was 2021, and thought, wow, there's a huge amount more capability and operational API support. That's when we obviously brought to life Assure, and been fortunate enough that we're now backing up literally hundreds of thousands of networks. I'd probably say over 1 million now Meraki devices and Catalyst devices that are in the dashboard. But to give a quick kind of very, very rapid demo. So we've got a network here with a couple of Catalyst switches in managed mode. But think of the problem 1,000 times. So, via the API, it's heard and know of customers that have accidentally deleted networks, deleted devices. We want to obviously reduce that network downtime as quickly as possible. So utilizing the API, we can rapidly restore all of the kind of configure to do with a device, to do with a network, back into that platform, so that we minimize the impact. Should that be a accidental change that goes wrong? Those are the most kind of common ones that come into our NOC. So we've kind of built a managed service around this with an SLA, or actually could it be a malicious insider? Someone who's actually got privileged access that's for whatever reason differently deleted thousands of networks and devices. We want to put that back to a good operational state as rapidly as possible. Assure is the capability to absolutely do that, and this is a particular platform that is an interesting one when it comes to continually maintaining and sustaining recovery, because the Meraki dashboard API changes pretty much every month, if not actually more aggressively in recent years, maybe every couple of weeks. So we need to make sure we update that platform so we can maintain the restoration and that SLA. And then the last one, again, I've loved this project because it's come from absolutely nothing, but it is genuinely making an impact. If I think about the power of Ethernet optimization that we're making on campus and branch networks, we're saving now every 30 days just over 33,000 kilowatts in Cisco PoE. That's just one use case of 4. But we're also seeing customers changing the dial around, saving on energy waste, and then obviously as a byproduct, money and carbon emissions by optimizing their campus and branch network by 65%. So what does that mean? That means that the Cisco network is powering off for 65% of the year, saving huge sums of carbon emissions and energy waste. And yeah, it has been one of our most rapidly adopted solutions because it generally makes an impact. But to give a quick kind of example of that, it has been a journey to Wiser Watts. A lot of the inspiration for this was actually my early engineering days with something called Cisco EnergyWise Orchestrator. I don't know if anybody's watching knows Cisco EnergyWise Orchestrator. But I was, that was the inspiration behind this. So we've created a power policy on Wiser Watts. We're giving it a tag of 8 till 6, and then we want to power off the infrastructure at 6 p.m. Obviously quite lean office hours, but no two customers are the same. Do a quick discovery. So we're going to understand that network topology, understand what's going on in that environment. It's an always on environment. So it's 24/7 de facto always on. But we want to change that straight away. So we go onto the Meraki dashboard for Catalyst or the Meraki devices, tag that network, could also tag it. I think so most of the sort of hundreds of customers on this platform use granular port level tagging, but we'll tag it at a network level anyway. So that 8 till 6 tags on that particular network. Again, think about doing that at scale. So what's going to happen now? So at the start, we create the power policy. We've tag the network. It's going to augment those two variables together and go, okay, based on this, we can remove 58% of energy waste from this evening at 6 p.m. The key part is automation. So customers not having to spend hours and hours and hours creating these power policies. It's providing all of the automated actions for actually benefiting from that saving from this evening. So click apply, that'll then at scale and pace push out all of those configuration touch points. So kind of true automation when it comes to trying to achieve a particular outcome, in which case for this is actually trying to save on carbon emissions and cost. Do a quick rediscovery, and then we can see there's no more automated actions that need to be pushed out from the platform, and we can then get on with our our day job. We don't have to spend weeks commissioning it. We've spent literally 5 minutes creating a power policy, tagging our network on Cisco Network and Cloud, and then pushing it out and moving on. So that was good from the energy management perspective, but key part is actually how do we report on it, because there's no point taking action unless you can measure it, track it, what the impact is. So on our network intelligence platform, which is kind of one of our flagship solutions, we dive into where we created an agent that ultimately every 24 hours tracks and pulls data from the Cisco Network and Cloud or Meraki Dashboard API to understand, okay, what's the saving been? And in this case, this particular environment, we've removed 52% of energy waste, and when we're also looking at port utilization. So kind of go hand in hand with Wiser Watts for the actual energy waste removal is the reporting part. And we've been adding to this over the last few years, which has been really exciting to get feedback, because kind of I live and breathe on customer feedback. I wouldn't bother getting out of bed in the morning if I wasn't going to get some feedback. And I prefer ugly feedback, Adrian, I think is a key.
Oh, yeah.
That I can work with ugly feedback. I can't work with just it's good. So yeah, I think wrapping up on this, it's very much been a collaborative approach. We would not have been able to get to where we are today without the solid relationships and partnership with Cisco over the last 5 years, and we have been fortunate enough as Screen to be recognised for a lot of the solutions that I quickly demoed. Where I think the most exciting one for me was being the UK&I Innovation Partner of the Year. That was something I was kind of trying to strive to get for a little while, but also quite a few of these, certainly at the top of the global level, like the Partner Innovation Challenge. That's been one that we entered in Nucleus in 2020 when it was a minimal viable product, and each of those came with kind of reward, right, so that we could recirculate back into the innovation practice. And that's been a real key catalyst for a lot of this. But nothing more excites me than customers getting recognized by Cisco for doing things differently. And this was just last year, where Wrexham Council, who have been hugely collaborative in the innovation space with me and the team, they were recognized for a Sustainability Changemaker Award because they've been really changing the dial and removing energy waste across their 70 schools. And I'm just really, I've all the kind of, I guess, accolades and awards. I think the customer one was by far the best one for me, because it was actually, we can create the enablers, the customer has to take the action. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of what you run through, find on kind of LinkedIn, post quite a lot of, I guess, fairly unique, I'd like to hope anyway, content on LinkedIn fairly regularly. On how we're trying to change the dial around API integration and programmability, and just generally sort of software development for better outcomes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ali. And we're getting close here. Any final thoughts, plans for the future that you can share with folks?
Can I say more sleep again? I don't know, but no. No. So I think the excitement for me is that we're branching out in regards to more architectures. There's a I think when I started working with Cisco, everything was very proprietary. There was no way there was not even an integration point. Whereas now, every launch of a new Cisco platform, there is a northbound API to be able to integrate with, to automate and to create workflows and create something that elevates that Cisco technology above and beyond. So yeah, I think mostly for me is keep solving problems, keep watching areas. So I think one of the questions that came up quite a few times during Cisco Live is like what we're going to be doing around things like AI. I've been very much in listening, learning, discovery mode. I don't claim to be an expert at anything, actually, to be honest, but certainly not an AI. And there are certainly use cases within some of the solutions that I've touched on, which would really benefit from looking at how can we solve a few problems around AI. So a good one would be how do we get answers quicker in some of our intelligence platforms so that our own people can benefit from quicker answers and responses, as well as obviously our valued joint customers as well. So yeah, never a dull moment, Adrian. I think I think I've got a roadmap the length of kind of the wall of China.
No, I mean this is fantastic. Shannon also was here. He just wanted to say, and I also want to echo that. Very honored to have you, Ali. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing what you folks are doing. This is fantastic. So for everyone watching, now you've seen automation actually made into an actual business practice that brings a lot of money. How all these things that we've talked about over the years, how they come together, and how Cisco partners like CAE, right, they add extra value. They can differentiate themselves compared to other VARs, and they can make better business. And not only that, but they can help their customers, and they have happier customers, right, with lower costs for deployments, for refreshes, for hardware refreshes, for disaster recovery, like you've showed, Ali. Right, so all these use cases that the APIs have brought on for automation, right? Specifically where you can scale, you can bring in all these extra products, platforms. So that's all we had for today.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no, always a pleasure. Love to have you back. We've had also Ian from CA. We'll see who else we bring on.
You're welcome. It was great watching that.
Yeah, so thank you so much again. Any final words before we end the stream?
I think just keep on doing what you're doing really around Cisco DevNet. I think it's been obviously a big enabler for me and my team. Keep telling product management to think API first, because that helps. That we can't innovate, right, if there's not an API first strategy. So that's probably a key one for me. Is if there's a UI, there needs to be an API.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dexter, also for joining. I see Oren in there, Marcos, and like I said, Shannon. Thank you all for watching, folks. See you on the next one next week with Patrick Mossiman. We're going to talk Catalyst Center and Netbox, and he has a whole pipeline set up.
Nice.
So I'm excited about that session too. But first, thank you so much, Ali, again, and see you around.
See you around. Speak soon. Take care.
Take care, everyone.